This is the new era. This is the new band, and we're unbreakable.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We can make him better than he was. Better, stronger, faster. Actually, better, stronger,
faster. Is that a
faster.
line from Starship Troopers or something?
No, it's actually the $1 Million Man.
$6 Million Man. I know that, and
I don't even know what that is.
We Brits don't do excitement, so this is the best you're gonna get.
Chris is bringing the noise today, apparently.
Speaking of vanilla,
it's just I don't understand why.
I don't think anyone does. I don't think Travis Green understands.
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust. This is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and CKNW.com. Here they are, fresh from folding towels, sharpening skates, and washing jock straps. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Matt Lee with you here in studio, joined by Anna Forsyth. You can follow us at MattLee_61 and at AForsyth03. Not sitting in the studio right now, Chris Golden at Lightforce. That's with a Y. Adam Ovenel Carter at Adam FOC. That's with an F. Neither of them in studio for this one, Anna, but how are you doing on this very hot Monday evening?
Yeah, I'm definitely warm. I don't think Adam and Chris could fit in here. We're in the smallest of hot boxes.
What is it, like? I think it's about 6 feet wide by 3 feet, so we're talking about 18 square feet. It's about the size of a Japanese condo.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much would we have to pay for this if it was...
This is primo real estate in Vancouver right here.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of downtown.
I'm surprised the Vancouver Public Library, shout out to the Vancouver Public Library, has not charged $2,000 for the studio for someone to sleep in part-time.
Yeah.
So we got a lot to talk about, Anna. It's been 2 weeks since our last episode. We can talk about Michael Ferland joining the Vancouver Canucks. He on a 3-year contract. Four.
Yeah, that was just wishful thinking there.
Yeah, 4 years at
$3.5 million.
Thank you.
Good math.
I was told there'd be no math. We'll also talk a little bit about Brock Besser continuing to be unsigned, and maybe a retrospect. Like, we're almost halfway through the offseason. We'll look around the rest of the Western Conference, see where the Vancouver Canucks' recent moves sort of stack up against the other playoff teams. So a lot of that to get into. Before we do that, though, we last episode, I know I made a joke about Adam Ovenel Carter, of course. You can go back and listen to it if you want, and I know for some people that was not received very well, and
it was
you know
poor taste. Well,
very poor taste, and I reached out to Adam personally to apologize. I reached out to those listeners who contacted us as well to apologize, and for everyone else who does listen, of course, very poor taste of joke. Adam knows how close I am with him. He's a very good friend of mine, one of my closest friends. So, of course, I didn't mean any of the things I said, but of course, I do apologize to the people who may have been offended by that. Next time, maybe I'll have Anna and Chris just take the mic away from me if they see that I'm going into a place that I probably should not be.
Yeah, rugby tackle you next time.
Yes. So, again, thank you for sticking with us, though. Happy to address that right off the hop, and apologize to our listeners for that episode. But going forward, of course, we do expect the professionalism to remain constant as we go through the rest of the offseason.
We love a bit of banter, but sometimes we get a bit
Sometimes you got to rein in the horse, and
yes.
That was one time when the horse got out of the stable a little bit too much there. So I do apologize for that. But of course, Anna, lots to get into for today's episode. Very quickly, though, how are you coping in this heat? I need to know. What is your secret?
I mean,
I think it gets hot in London, doesn't it?
It does. It's really hot today. It's like 35 degrees in London.
I feel like Sunday was hot as well here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Like, yesterday was hotter than today.
Yes, and there was no breeze yesterday. Like, I live pretty close to the ocean, like a 5-minute walk from the beach, and it was just completely still. So, yeah, it was rather warm yesterday, and I was in a small apartment hosted by the...
Are you in a basement suite?
I am. So my apartment's quite cold, but I was in Annalise's place, loyal listener to the show Annalise. And so, we were quite warm in there, but we had a good time. I am not meant for heat. I mean, you can look at my skin here. I don't tan. I don't do anything. I just burn. I
tan like crazy.
Oh, is that your skin tone? Tanned?
I'm pretty sure I actually wore this outfit yesterday, too, so apologize to you for wearing day-old clothing here on the hottest days of summer.
And let me tell you, listeners, it is tight. He is in cycling gear.
It is cycling gear. It's cycling shorts. It's a beater. It is hot. as hot as HELL hockey sticks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is hot, and love to hear how you guys keep cool in the hot weather, because any tips would be appreciated. We're not here to talk about hot weather, so let's get right into it. So, Anna Forsyth, a couple weeks ago, I feel like it was now, blindsided, if you will, by the news that the Vancouver Canucks all of a sudden closing in on a 4-year contract with Michael Ferland. I got the news, I feel like it was around 2 Thursdays ago now or something like that. It was midweek, maybe the day after one of our most recent episodes.
It was a slow time. We kind of
just minding our own business.
Things would be wrapped up or
I'll walk you through how I sort of found out.
Okay,
I mean,
sure.
I still subscribe to tweets from Elliot Friedman, Rick Dollywall, like a lot of those insiders, because I was doing
They're
that
great news.
in the days leading up to July 1st. And admittedly, I forgot to take them off of notifications because we're entering those dog days of summer. I have Bob McKenzie tweeting about his cabin in the woods and all that stuff.
And margaritas, maybe?
So I forgot to turn off Elliot Friedman's, and I saw his tweet saying that the Canucks were closing in on a contract with Michael Ferland, something along those lines. I was pretty surprised, I'm not going to lie, because the Canucks brought in Tyler Myers, they brought in Jordy Ben. Who else did they bring in out of free agency? Oscar Fantenberg.
Yeah.
We had already sort of penciled in players for the forward position for the Vancouver Canucks. We already know the forward situation. So it was out of left field for me when I see that the Vancouver Canucks were suddenly interested in Michael Ferland.
I mean, we've talked about Michael Ferland as a player before, and there's been rumors of interest in him for a while. We've talked about him as the typical Jim Benning player, the typical meat and potatoes player, like completely what Jim loves in a player. But when they made the other off-season signings, we just thought that they weren't going to go after Ferland. So to commit that amount of money and turn to him, that was, a little disappointing for sure.
So 4 years, you're not happy with the amount of term. Was it a year too long?
Yeah, it's only in the the contract in isolation is decent. Like, he's, his production is good. He's coming off some good seasons. 2 40-point plus seasons. Yes, so that's impressive, but it's only in the context of the other contracts we signed and it being the last one in the door that makes you uncomfortable when the cap we're kind of looking at now.
I mean, we'll get back to Michael Ferland, the player, in a second, but looking just back at that contract, 4 years, do you have as much of a problem if it's 3?
No. But
for me, the salary is not a problem for me on Ferland, actually. If it was 3.5 over 3 years, I'm actually pretty happy with that. It feels like Jim Benning may have given 1 year too much, and we have, I don't know if there's a running joke, but Benning with Jay Beagle and with Loui Eriksson, like the contracts that he has given out, it seems like the quote-unquote weakness for Jim is that he gives that extra year to players to incentivize them, just like how Mike Gillis was giving out no trade clauses and no move clauses to get players to come in here.
And sometimes Jim's doing both.
And sometimes he does both, of course, but sure, you don't love that 4th year. I mean, Ferland plays such an aggressive style that 4th year feels like a bit of a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, but I like Ferland at 4 years, for example, better than I like Tyler Myers on 5.
Okay, sure. I guess the problem is we signed Tyler Myers first.
Yeah.
So, once Tyler Myers was done, I didn't see why we're committing more money when we're in this cap squeeze situation, and we haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, we were just talking at the beginning of the season about weaponizing the cap space, and here we are sitting with the cap space problem. It's just the work of Jim Benning in such a short time astonishes me.
So, getting back to Michael Ferland, the player, and we prefaced it by saying, did I use it in the right context?
Yeah. Good
nice.
job.
2 straight 40-point seasons. I feel like there's a bit of an asterisk here with Michael Ferland. Like, those 2 40-point seasons have come with him playing with some high-profile talent in Calgary and Carolina. Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, and most recently Sebastian Aho. Looking at Ferland, the player, is it safe to say at this point he will be given every opportunity to start and stick in the top 6 on a perhaps Pettersson or Horvat line?
I think you kind of have to, once you kind of bet on him doing that by giving him the contract you do. You've got to say that you're investing in him. And I think it does speak to their concerns over Sven Bechy, maybe like continuing to perform a top 6 role, and maybe continuing to perform any role in the league. Hate to say that, but it's a possibility. But yeah, if you get a player like Michael Ferland, although we rag on Jim Benning, like he has good scouts and he will have done his research. There's no way he's gonna bury him in on a third line role with talent that doesn't help him produce.
Right. So, is the Ferland signing, in your mind, getting back to it, more about concerns about Sven Bechy, or do they just truly believe Ferland is a top 6 player?
I mean, I'm sure it's both, but you look at the lineup we currently have, and something's got to give, right? We can't keep all the players we have, and you're looking at players like Pearson and Bechy and and obviously in the decoy you're looking at Tanev to be possible trade bait, and then there's the problem of Loui Eriksson, which is a whole nother issue. But yeah, something has to give, and obviously they're penciling in Ferland for a top 6 role, so someone has to move out of that top 6.
So,
and probably out of the team as well.
Mid-July right now, Anna, and give me a way too soon look at what you think the top 9 for the Vancouver Canucks looks at. And let me preface this by saying Cap Friendly actually has Ferland listed as both a left winger and a right winger. So there is the possibility he can play both wings.
Right.
Give me what your top 9 looks like right now, mid-July.
I think we're looking at Besser, PD, Miller. Yeah,
Miller on the left wing, Besser on the right, and Pettersson up the middle.
Obviously Bo centering that second line, with Ferland, and I feel like Pearson gets bumped, don't you?
I mean,
it really depends.
So hang on here.
If we keep
Ferland, though, let's
soon,
imagine though that Ferland can play on the right wing.
Okay.
But just because the depth at right wing is not great, like after Ferland on the right wing, you could go back to Loui Eriksson if you really wanted to go there, and we'll talk about Eriksson in a little bit. Or you could go with Tyler Mott or Jake Virtanen on the right wing. I mean, it's slim pickings for that second line right winger role. I mean, I'm sure that there will be a training camp battle for it, but looking at it at a glance right now, following the money, Ferland should get a first look at that second line right wing spot if all things are considered.
Sure.
So then it does come down to Tanner Pearson versus Sven Bechy for that left wing role on the second line.
Yeah, so it really depends on how Bechy pulls up.
And to answer your question, like, we can't dismiss how good Tanner Pearson did look on the left wing with Horvat down the stretch.
And it was a shorter time period, but I still think, he's definitely worth a shot, but it's, all depends on Bechy. Who would you be putting down?
If I had to pick between Pearson and Bechy on a line with Horvat and Ferland, I think I would rather honestly go with Tanner Pearson. And
the thing is, he hasn't looked good since he came back, but will the offseason give
you know what?
time
It's
to
not
recover?
that he's looked good, though, but like even in the games Bechy has played, he's kind of... It is what it is with Sven Bechy. Like, can you see him at his best being anything more than like a 20-goal, 20-assist kind of guy?
Yeah, and I guess you kind of want to bet on your future with the Canucks.
And like, the thing with Tanner Pearson is he's not that far removed from a very successful career with the LA Kings. Like, at one point, Pearson was a proven 40-point guy. Like, he had two 40-point seasons under his belt, one of those being a 24-goal season.
Right. And obviously didn't go well in Pittsburgh.
But look at what Sven Bechy has to his name right now. Like, Bechy has yet to stay healthy for the full course of a season, letting alone putting together 20-goal seasons.
Yeah, he's
never cracked 20.
Bad luck.
He's never cracked more than 35 points. And Bechy has been given a lot of opportunities to succeed in a scoring role.
He has. And I just, it's not necessarily he hasn't made the most of his opportunities, but he's had terrible luck with injuries, with his foot, with concussion, all of this. And yeah.
And like the big elephant in the room is there's a lot of pressure for this team to make the playoffs, Anna. And you got to go with the player that will give you the best chance to succeed. And if I'm looking at them on paper, Tanner Pearson does look a little bit more qualified to be on that second line wing with Horvat, more so than Baertschi.
I think I have to agree, because not only does he give us the best shot for the playoffs, you think of him even outside that as a better bet for our future, right? Rather than Sven Baertschi. So even if you're looking at 2 years' time for the playoffs, as I think is more realistic, Sven Baertschi, you don't think is the guy that's going to get us there necessarily.
A lot of sort of still speculation and things yet to be determined, and we'll get into the rest of the roster and how it looks coming up in just a little bit. Before we go to a break, let's talk about this trade that had nothing to do with the Vancouver Canucks, and it happened last week, Anna, between the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames. Bit of a bomb, if you will, I can't remember who dropped it. It was Sportsnet.
It was Porter out of Calgary, whose name Jim Matheson, actually, wasn't it?
Was it Jim Matheson?
I think so.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay. Anyway,
Either
it
way,
was someone else.
Milan Lucic for James Neal, a conditional pick being involved, and I believe the Calgary Flames are also, or the who's retaining salary again in this case? It would be the Edmonton Oilers retaining some salary on Lucic, which was like, what was it, less than $1 million? 925,000 or something to that effect. I'll double check on that.
Checked this before.
No, you know what? No, we always hustle, but we never sort of fully prepare. While I look it up and confirm the numbers, what is your first reaction though to the deal?
My first reaction to the deal is, what are the Oilers like? What is Calgary doing? Like, I know it's bad contract for bad contract, but I think for me it's such a huge thing that James Neal doesn't have those no movement clauses. And does it switch next year, I think, the conditions on Lucic's? Well,
no. I mean, the Calgary Flames are going to honor Lucic's no movement clause, so he'll have to be protected.
Yeah, but it
expansion.
Switches, I think the conditions switch either next year or the year after.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Anyway, but I think it's such a huge deal that James Neal isn't, like, strapped by that. I really don't understand. I just don't think it's worth it to just sort of see what you have in James Neal, like, and see what you have in Milan Lucic. Like, I don't think it's going to change. Milan Lucic isn't going to have a huge resurgence just by moving. Well, I mean, slightly further north, is he? Like,
I remember when Lucic signed with the Edmonton Oilers, and I think he was asked like why you signed, and he pointed to Connor McDavid, saying like 97. And I think everyone thought at the time Lucic would be this offensive force riding shotgun with Connor McDavid, and it never worked out. 3 years removed from that deal, what is really going to change at this point? Milan Lucic is 3 years older. Is playing with high-profile talent going to boost his numbers back up to what they were before? Probably not.
That's the thing. I think Edmonton Oilers are a great showcase organization in the fact that a few talented players does not make an organization. And I do agree that like Calgary is a better run organization in general than Edmonton because it can't be worse. But I don't think that's going to completely change like the player Lucic is or reverse the effects of aging.
Yeah. By the way, going back to the deal itself, the Edmonton Oilers retaining 12.5% of Lucic's remaining contract. And that conditional third-round pick. Did you see the conditions on this thing?
So it's something like James Neal has to score 10 goals less?
James Neal has to record at least 21 goals, and Lucic scores at least 10 fewer goals than Neal for the Oilers to send a third-round pick to the Calgary Flames. That's great. I did that in fantasy hockey pools all the time.
I mean, it's bizarre.
Those are performance-based conditions, Anna.
Yeah.
Can we do, and we'll talk about this, what would be your condition for a Loui Eriksson trade? Performance-based conditions. We'll talk about that. Let's simmer on that one. But the Edmonton Oilers, they win this trade in a landslide, do they not?
Yeah.
Like, getting Milan Lucic off the books at, like, 12.5% retained is a huge win. And while James Neal's contract also sucks, I feel like he has a better chance at turning it around than Milan Lucic does.
Yeah. I think, but even if he didn't, the lack of a no movement clause or no trade clause is great.
So,
and he's cheaper, so not a ton cheaper, but cheaper.
Rick Dhaliwal, I think, followed up with Milan Lucic after this deal and asked if he had ever been asked or been considered to ask waiving his no trade clause for a move or no movement clause for a move to Vancouver. Lucic says he was never approached about anything like that. So it sounds like all that smoke about Lucic coming to Vancouver was really just speculation at this point. Having looked at this deal and considering the fact that Loui Eriksson is still a Vancouver Canuck, do you think a Lucic for Eriksson deal would have worked at all for Vancouver?
I mean, I wasn't interested in it just because it hamstrung us for another year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think Lucic's performance changes a great deal. Him coming here. It's possible that it never got to Lucic, but maybe it went to the Oilers and they said no. But, yeah, I don't know why they would, but I would just take a player that has a year less on his contract. But, yeah, I wouldn't be interested in that, so I'm not necessarily unhappy that deal, if there ever was an idea of a deal, fell through.
Do you think that, like, bias aside, which player would you rather have on your team, Eriksson or James Neal?
So are we ignoring contracts?
Ignoring contracts, just like, who is the better player of the two?
Probably James Neal.
I think so, too.
But I don't think it's a huge difference. James Neal has definitely fallen off the cliff compared to the player.
You could argue James Neal's contract might actually be worse than Eriksson's at this point. Like, Eriksson's is 1 year less than Neal's, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, but again, the lack of the no movement, no trade clause. Eriksson's is definitely worse.
Because of the fact that he has the no trade clause at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough. Last thoughts on the Lucic and James Neal trade. I mean, Ken Holland, good move. Good first move. Like, it was a move that they had to make to get Lucic off the books. I'm still really curious what the Oilers do with Jesse Puljujarvi. That seems to be the next elephant in the room, so to speak.
Big problem child of the Oilers.
But the Calgary Flames, I can't see Lucic working out as a valid trade that will be in their favor. Like, this felt like a lose-lose trade in some aspects.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see how Calgary does next year. They obviously had a great season last year. I'm not saying, like, Lucic, like, drives them off the tracks necessarily. I just don't see him massively helping out there.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll take a bit of a break, and when we come back, we'll get into the rest of what we've got going on, and that's, looking at the Vancouver Canucks RFA situation. Brock Besser still unsigned, and the rest of the roster as we head towards, the last half of the offseason. All coming up next here on the C4 Podcast, CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
He liked to say the F word.
Oh, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't. You, out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
So, Anna, it's July 22nd, and we're sitting here today, and really across the NHL, there are a lot of high-profile restricted free agents who have yet to sign contracts. We saw with Sebastian Aho, he got an offer sheet. Mikko Rantanen, Mitch Marner, Brock Besser, those are the three most notable, I would say, RFAs that are without a contract. I'm missing some more, actually, though.
I'm sure we'll come up against
Well, I'll look it up, but the point still stands that Brock Besser is still without a contract. Did you think we'd be here in late July, if you will, thinking that Brock Besser was still unsigned?
I definitely hope we wouldn't be. But with this organization, this management team, getting the deals done hasn't been their strong point. I'm not huge. I'm obviously concerned because of the cap situation. I do think Brock Besser wants to be here. and all being well and if entirely possible, he will just put pen to paper as soon as possible. But I'm sure they're bumping up against, the money they have to play with, and I think term is a big deal for his camp.
Here's my conspiracy theory on Brock Besser and all of the RFAs. I'm willing to bet, and I actually don't know who is being represented by which agents here, but part of me wants to know if the RFAs that are here, Mikko Rantanen, Besser, Marner, I wonder if they've all sort of made a pact, if you will, to say hold out as long as possible to see if there will be a team out there that throws them ridiculous money on an offer sheet like they did with Sebastian Aho, just to maximize what everybody in that RFA pool gets.
I think that's tinfoil hat time.
Maybe tinfoil hat time, but I think that there is...
If you're talking about owner conspiracies, I'd be way
not
more willing.
Owner, like these are player
I know,
conspiracies.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that happens. I'm sure that's against some kind of code of conduct if it was ever proven. I'm sure that, amounts to collusion or something. No, I think that just... I'm not saying, Jim is just trying his best to get it done and they'll eventually get it done. I just think they're hitting up against some pretty obvious obstacles.
Is it that the RFAs are waiting for the Mitch Marner domino to fall? They're waiting on Mitch Marner's contract to get worked out because that's going to sort of set the bar, if you will, for the rest of them? I mean, that's probably the more likely scenario in my mind.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're, specifically doing that, but it will definitely... I do think you're right in the fact that Mitch Marner's next contract will definitely show the level we're looking at for keeping your star players. Yeah.
Anyway, it's all tinfoil hat, if you will, and I admit that it's kind of crazy, but...
We've got to make our own entertainment here, Matt.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think by now I thought that this contract situation with Brock Besser was going to be resolved. He's already skating. He's playing in the Beauty League at this point. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to get an offer sheet. It just seems like inevitably Brock Besser will get the contract done. It's just the question of term and money.
What? I know we've talked about this before, but if term is the snagging point for Besser's camp, what term would you be happy to agree to in order for him to put pen to paper?
If I'm the Vancouver Canucks, I want at least 5 years on Besser. Just to eat up some of those free agency years.
Would you agree to 4?
I think 4 would take him directly to free agency as well.
Yeah. They don't want to do that. I know that.
Even if the Canucks are getting just one of them, Braden Point, by the way, is the other high-profile RFA.
Oh,
yeah. I just want to eat up at least 1 or 2 of those years. So it's like a 5 or 6 year deal is fine by me.
Okay. I do think I don't see Besser signing for more than 5. I'd like to tie him down for more than 5, but I don't see it. Yeah,
you're probably right. Matthew Tkachuk also unsigned. There are a lot of RFAs out there that are still not signed.
Yeah. I know one theory we're talking about was waiting for...
Charlie McAvoy also not signed.
Loui Eriksson's bonus to be paid out so that we could explore trade options.
Oh, God, Kyle Connor and Patrick Laine also unsigned. There are a lot of high-profile players who have still not signed contracts.
A lot of those are sort of inevitable. It's just, how big are we going? Yeah, but it's been a week since Eriksson's bonus got paid out. We haven't heard any
by the way,
stories about trade rumors.
I thought that was getting done. I thought it was like, here's your bonus, and here's your trade as well. But no, it did not happen. So,
and then, just focusing on the Canucks, there's still a lot of kind of guys on the jag end of things that are kind of eating up cap space. And you're just like, can we, ship one of them out with Loui?
Probably not. And we'll get to Loui Eriksson. We'll take a break first, and then we'll get right back into the Loui Eriksson discussion right here on the C4 Podcast, CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So Loui Eriksson is still a Vancouver Canuck. Somehow, some way.
As we record, he's still a Vancouver Canuck.
At this point, Anna, are you beginning to believe that there is a chance Loui Eriksson starts this season with the Vancouver Canucks?
Yeah. Because we had his agent saying, I believe right before we recorded our previous episode, that it's no longer a good environment for Loui Eriksson to continue playing in Vancouver.
Yep.
And then he's since said that they're in ongoing discussions about like the best way forward, and it just seems like they're setting up for just being like, oh, just bring
like
it
a
back.
kiss and make up kind of a situation.
It makes me really mad to say that because of the situation we're in. But
I think my guess what happened was I think management thought to themselves it was going to be a lot easier to get rid of Loui Eriksson than it actually was. I think management thought to themselves, there's got to be a taker for a very still serviceable Loui Eriksson. Maybe we'll consider retaining some salary. And there just was not the market out there that they had expected. And now we've reached this point, mid-July now, where teams have made their moves. We've seen the Lucic and Neal shoes drop. Teams are starting to formulate what their final rosters are going to look like. And they're telling Vancouver there's just not a spot for a $6 million man on a roster.
Yeah, that's the thing. At the beginning of the summer, as we said previously, we were looking at a situation where we had this cap space and we thought, okay, we need to get rid of a bad contract, but we do have some weapons in our armory to do that. And now we signed... we signed all these free agents. We did, like Tyler Myers, yes, it wasn't as bad as we thought, but it wasn't great. Like Jordy Ben... whatever, that's fine. And Michael Ferland as well are the big names there. So now we're at looking at a situation where we still got Loui and we don't have any weapons in our armory to make he seem like a good deal to someone.
At this point for Jim Benning, strategically speaking, is the plan B here? Well, first, the plan A is to find a trader for Loui Eriksson. I think the ultimate plan B, and it's much less palatable, is burying Loui Eriksson in Utica.
Yeah, and I don't see him playing in Utica.
Oh, I can't see Loui Eriksson playing in Utica either.
Why would he?
But even from the Vancouver Canucks perspective, why do you even make that move? Because you're only saving $1 million in cap space. It's more about the roster space that you're opening.
Exactly.
That is the emergency button that they press if they're a day out from the NHL season starting and there's still no trade in place for Loui Eriksson.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that we can still see that emergency button being hit really speaks to the lack of planning, because we can talk about this summer being a missed opportunity so far in getting a trade for Loui Eriksson, but they signed him to the deal in the first place is the problem. And with every day that goes by, I can't resent Loui Eriksson. He doesn't want to go to a bad team. We can't blame him for that. He got the contract he did, and management was dumb enough to give it to him.
All this said, I still think that there are some teams out there that might be able to both stomach a Loui Eriksson cap hit and find him serviceable.
Yeah, I think so.
The Ottawa Senators, they're still in a hurry to get to the cap floor. The Arizona Coyotes have some space, and they've suddenly started taking on some contracts and spending more money. There are maybe less than a half dozen teams, I'd say, that could still be in the mix, quote-unquote, for Loui Eriksson. But realistically speaking, I'd say it's a 50-50 shot at best that the Canucks find a way to get Loui Eriksson off their roster.
Isn't that Isn't that just really sad? That's depressing thought. And I hope we're wrong. I've never wished more to be, like, trumped by a news cycle. Like, I hope by the time we publish this episode, there's a rumor, there's something. But right now, it's not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that I'll be back on next Monday's episode with Chris Golden saying, "Peace be with you, Loui Eriksson." But at this point, I just can't see that being the case at this point.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit off the top of the show, and we'll transition here. The offseason, almost half over at this point. You've had a chance to sort of see what other teams in the West have sort of done. The Dallas Stars making waves. They signed Joe Pavelski. The San Jose Sharks finding a way to keep and retain Erik Karlsson over the offseason. The Colorado Avalanche, they've made some moves. It looks like Cale Makar will start the season in Colorado as well. Like, Minnesota Wild, like, they're sort of still in it as well. But if you look at what the Canucks have done and stack it up against the rest of the West, are the Canucks a playoff contender right now in mid-July?
I think they look better. Not a ton better, but they do look like a better team. We talked a lot about the decor. We can't come back the same way. And Tyler Myers, while I don't think it's worth the investment we made, I think he does improve it. I think Jordy Ben does improve the team. I don't think we look like a massively different team. So I think, if anything, we're just closer to the bubble. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's a too glass half empty way of looking at things.
That's a pretty murky way of looking at it.
Yeah, I know. And we've got the two,
The Canucks are no doubt a better team this year in the offseason than they were at this point last year in the offseason. But are they better enough to make the playoffs is the big question. And I think that they are. And I'll agree with you that they're on that bubble.
Yeah.
But they need a little bit of luck and some things to break right for them to actually get into the playoffs, in my mind.
Yeah, I think so. Because if you're talking about the people that have improved their team. San Jose definitely have. I know they're not necessarily the people we will be battling out a playoff spot for. They're probably higher up there. Colorado looked really good. I think I'm going to enjoy watching them this year again. I just think we dropped down a spot in the lottery, right? So we really weren't that close to the playoffs. Like, we finished 9th from bottom.
Yeah.
Like, that's still a little jump. It's not as bad as the previous year, but it's still a little jump to make the playoffs. And I think we've made a small jump, but I don't know if it's big enough.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, looking at the teams that did not make the postseason last year, like the Minnesota Wild did not make the playoffs, and Colorado and I believe it was Dallas were the wild card teams.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. Like, Dallas beat Nashville in the first round. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
And Colorado beat Calgary. So Colorado and Dallas were the two wild card teams. I don't think the Canucks have improved enough to supplant those two.
No, exactly. I mean, talk about Colorado and Dallas really have made a significant jump.
I would say that Colorado and Dallas have found a way to either remain the same or improve their teams.
I would say, big improvement.
In terms of teams that you could see that were in the top 3 in their division and could be candidates to regress, are there any teams out there that you think could take a step back? Calgary, maybe? But is it enough to fall out of the top 3 in the Pacific?
I don't know. I mean, I just don't think they're going to win the Pacific. But
I think Calgary does regress a little bit, but not enough to fall out of the top 3 in the Pacific. Also, it was Calgary, San Jose, and Vegas.
Yeah. In
the top 3 in the Pacific. And of those three teams, actually, I could see Vegas maybe taking a bit of a step back.
Yeah, but is it enough, like, to completely fall out of the top 3 / like wildcard spot? Like, they've still got March, so who's, I think, a really phenomenal player.
But has Vegas gotten better over the offseason, though?
They re-signed Billy Carlson, didn't they?
They signed William Karlsson, and they've got Mark Stone under contract for, like, the next 100 years. But,
yeah, although, he did play.
But those are all players that they had with them going into the playoffs.
Yep. I don't think they've taken a significant stride forward. Like, it might be even the same size of step as the Canucks, but they were in a much better position than the Canucks were.
Let me ask you this one then. I think this is a more realistic regression candidate. The Winnipeg Jets. They traded away Jacob Trouba for that first-round pick, which they obviously is good for them long-term.
Right.
But the Winnipeg Jets, they have not got Patrick Laine and Kyle Connor signed, so we don't know what's going to happen there. Let's assume that they bring them both back somehow.
Yeah.
Even though they're facing a bit of a cap crunch. Like, the Winnipeg Jets are kind of in the same boat as the Vegas Golden Knights. They didn't really improve their team over the offseason.
No, I would agree with that.
So if there is a window of opportunity for the Canucks to make the playoffs, it could be at the expense of either Winnipeg or Vegas, but I don't think it's going to be at the expense of Colorado at this point, and probably not Dallas either.
Yeah.
So the Canucks are going to essentially have to get some help from around the West and improve by that much more to make the playoffs. Like, if I were to,
just too many ifs, right?
There are a lot of ifs. And if I were to just like throw a number out there in terms of percentage of actually making the playoffs, I would say it's sub 50%.
Yep.
But better than like 25%.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like a 1 in 3, 1 in 4 shot.
I was
somewhere
thinking,
around there.
It's around 30, 35% maybe. I don't know. Yeah, 30% is good.
But it's kind of scary, though, that we're putting all our eggs in that basket because, again, that first-round pick for Tampa Bay looms large here.
Oh, God, I forgot about that for a hot second.
It's just a little scary that we're putting all our eggs in that one basket, and then if we miss the playoffs, that first-round pick goes to Tampa Bay most definitely for 2021. And at that point, I am praying that this team has gotten better enough that they will not miss the playoffs and will not be giving up a lottery pick in 2021. But it's a little dicey.
It's dicey, right?
Honestly, from a best case long-term situation, I'm hoping that somehow the Canucks just bottom out this 1 year, they keep their own first-round pick, and they're leaps and bounds better for the season after.
Right, but how does ownership look at that?
Not good. It'll probably come at the expense of Jim Benning's job. But
which isn't necessarily the end of the world, but for all the reasons for Jim Benning to lose his job, like, that seems crazy. But
yeah. Some random bits and bobs here as we wrap things up here on the C4 podcast, Anna. I'm not sure if you saw on Instagram, but Bo Horvat is officially off the market.
He is. Bless him. He got married at the weekend. One of his...
He brought Dallas Smith in to sing at his wedding. Do you know Dallas Smith?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that was a thing. But...
Great country singer.
Yes.
I think he's a Canadian boy, big Vancouver Canucks fan.
Canucks fan.
Horvat probably had to pull a couple strings there.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure Dallas was.
I saw Sven Berchi in the Instagram as well, so good to see Sven Berchi's out there.
Groom party, so...
I think Max Domi, Josh Anderson, and Chris Tierney were all in his wedding party.
Max Domi and Bo go way back, so I think
those London Knights boys.
They're pretty close.
But the wedding looked awesome. The Dad Lee did not get the invite, lost in the mail. I said, maybe you're the bouncer at the wedding, keeping all the riffraff out. I don't know.
He is the riffraff.
He is the riffraff.
Sorry, that was mean,
but it was pretty cool seeing it, and hopefully some bigger things in store. Very quickly, Bo Horvat, captaincy this year. Don't even question it.
I don't question it.
Yeah, fair enough. Any other random bits and bobs that we have here to wrap up here on the C4 podcast? I mean, the other thing I do want to tease, and I don't think you'll be here for this one, unfortunately.
I know, and it breaks my heart.
Next episode is going to be episode 199, so that's going to come out early August, which makes the episode after that, in that August 20th range, episode number 200.
Whoa. Can you believe we made it this far without killing each other?
I think you've been in at least 100 of those now, right?
I don't think that can be true. I'd have to look back, but I've been here 2 seasons.
I don't think I've been here for... I know I haven't been here for all 200 because the first 50 or so go back to Clay and Chris.
Who's that?
But I think I started around that episode 20 to 30 range.
Maybe I did. Maybe I have been here for half.
By the way, shout out to... I know he still listens to the show because he told me himself. Clay Emo.
Oh, yeah.
We saw him, first of all, he was at a wedding over the weekend with Adam Ovino Carter.
Yeah.
We saw the selfie. If you want, we'll share it in Discord as well. They were at a wedding, and then I saw Clay the day after yesterday
Is he stalking us? Like, should I be expecting him to turn up?
Pure coincidence. They were at a wedding together at, I think it was at Swanee-Set on Saturday. And then I saw Clay Emo on Sunday because his roller hockey team was playing against my roller hockey team.
Did you smoke him?
It was an elimination game. He did not play, by the way.
Oh.
Just awestruck in fear, I'm sure, of my elite
your
abilities.
Awesome skills.
And I took a lot of pleasure in eliminating his team from playoff contention. So shout out to Clay and his team, the Holy Rollers, who we defeated last night.
Of course they're called the
Of course they're called the Holy Rollers.
What's your team called?
The Sofa Kings.
Good.
Of course they're called the Sofa Kings, right?
Yeah.
That's how we keep our PG rating around here. And as we wrap things up here on the C4 Podcast, how about you tell some people where they can find us? You can find us everywhere these days, right?
Yeah, we're on Facebook at C4 Podcast. We're on Twitter at the C4 Podcast. You can also find our pinned tweet there where you can access our Discord, which is where you can get all the fun off-season chat to keep us going. And it's not limited to the Canucks. We do have occasional other banter. This week, me and Trev Goldie were going at it about the cricket. I'm sure no one else was interested, but we had fun. You can also find Discord at bit.ly/C4 Podcast, all caps.
Very good.
Question mark?
Question. I'm
Chris
Ron Burgundy.
Kill us. Yeah, Chris is going to kill me. Yeah, so just to close things out,
I would say, like, the line that we should be doing, and I've listened to a few podcasts lately, you can find us where you can download all podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Stitcher,
that's the best way of putting it. Like, Stitcher,
sure,
Spotify,
iTunes,
like, they're everywhere.
We're all the places you want us, and including some places you don't want us to be.
Yes.
That's where we are.
So we'll be back in a couple weeks for episode 199. I think it'll be Chris and myself on this one. You were off to the motherland.
Yes. I've got to go back and kind of top up my Britishness. So I will be...
She's going to come back all London-y again.
Yeah.
Fill up her London quota for the next season.
I was going to say, Matt's going to be using the...
You sound like you're from London.
Yeah, he's going to be using that a lot.
Good day, mate.
No.
That's Australian, isn't it?
So I'll love you and leave you, listeners, and I'll miss you, but you will. There's some fun stuff coming up, especially for this 200th episode, so...
Dingo Baby?
No.
It's also still Australian, isn't it?
Still Australian. Yep.
My bad. Yeah, I think just for me, number one, hoping the Brock Besser contract gets signed. Number two, a Loui Eriksson trade gets done. And number three, hoping that I don't say anything stupid for the next few weeks while you're gone.
One of those three might be too much to ask.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll let you speculate as to whose is what. That's going to do it for us. On behalf of Anna Forsyth, A Forsyth03, the absent Chris Golden at Lightforce, and the absent Adam Ovenel-Carter at Adam FOC, I'm merely Matt Lee at MattLee_61. Also, a special shout out to Nexus187. He's been listening live on Patreon Chat. Make sure you follow us in Discord as well, just like Nexus has. Thank you so much for listening on the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. With all that said, we're out.
Thanks for listening to the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com.